Imagine being forced to endure public humiliation while carrying life within you. A moment meant to strip you of your dignity. How would you respond? Would you crumble or would you rise? Today, we bring you a story of a pregnant black woman confronted with an unthinkable situation. Forced by police officers to wash their squad car, she did something that left everyone, officers, bystanders, and the world, speechless. Our story takes place in a quiet, small town, one where racial tensions simmer just beneath the surface. In this town, respect is not always granted equally, and power can often be misused. It's a place where daily life for people of color is marked by challenges unseen by others. Now imagine this: a woman visibly pregnant, walking on a hot summer day. Vulnerable, exhausted, yet focused on her errands. When she's stopped by law enforcement, it's not to protect or serve, it's to degrade. Coerced into cleaning a police car under the watchful eyes of onlookers, the scene is designed to humiliate her. But this isn't just a story about humiliation, it's one of resilience. Because what happens next doesn't follow the script. In the face of injustice, this woman responds not with anger, but with grace and words so profound that they challenge the very foundation of the officer's actions. Her response is a powerful reminder of the strength of the human spirit, even in the most difficult circumstances. It's a warm afternoon in a quiet neighborhood. The streets hum with the everyday rhythm of life. Children playing, people chatting, cars passing by. A pregnant black woman, about 7 months along, walks with a determined pace, carrying a small bag of groceries. She's minding her own business, focused on getting home before the heat becomes unbearable. Suddenly, the sound of a siren pierces the air and a patrol car pulls up beside her. Confused, she stops, clutching her belly protectively. 2 officers step out, their faces unreadable, and motion her over. The officers claim they've stopped her for jaywalking, a minor offense if it even occurred. Their tone is firm, bordering on condescending, as they ask for her ID. She hands it over, her hands trembling slightly, her face a mix of confusion and unease. But then, the situation takes an unexpected turn. Instead of letting her go, they make a demand that's as degrading as it is absurd. "You're going to wash our car," one of them says, tossing a sponge onto the ground at her feet. For a moment, she's frozen. Her eyes widen in disbelief and she glances around, as if hoping this is some kind of cruel joke. But the officers aren't laughing. One leans against the car, arms crossed, while the other points to a bucket of soapy water in the back seat. "You heard me," he says, his voice cold and authoritative. "Get to it." The woman's face flushes with humiliation. She's visibly torn between her instincts to resist and her fear of escalating the situation. She looks down at her swollen belly, her hands subconsciously cradling her unborn child. The weight of the moment is unbearable, but she takes a deep breath, steadies herself, and begins to act. As she reluctantly picks up the sponge, the scene starts to draw attention. People walking by slow their steps, unsure of what they're witnessing. A small crowd begins to gather, murmurs rippling through the onlookers. "What's going on?" someone asks. "Is this for real?" whispers another. The officers notice the growing audience, but seem unfazed. If anything, their stance grows more defiant, as if daring anyone to intervene. The woman, now kneeling by the car, begins to scrub the tires, her movements slow and deliberate. Her face remains calm, but her eyes burn with a quiet intensity that hints at what's coming next. In this moment, humiliation hangs heavy in the air, but so does something else. An undeniable sense of anticipation, as if everyone present knows this story is far from over. As the woman kneels by the car, the crowd watches in stunned silence. The officers exchange smirks, confident they've asserted their authority. But what happens next is something no one, not even the officers, could have anticipated. With trembling hands, she dips the sponge into the soapy water and begins scrubbing the car. Her movements are slow and deliberate, but there's a quiet strength in the way she carries herself. She doesn't lash out or raise her voice. Instead, she begins to speak, softly at first, but with a conviction that cuts through the tension like a blade. "You wear that badge to protect, not degrade," she says, her voice steady despite the quiver in her breath. She doesn't look up, her focus fixed on the car's wheels. "That badge represents justice. It's supposed to stand for fairness and safety for all of us. No matter how we look, no matter where we come from." The officer's smirks fade as her words begin to sink in. She continues, her voice growing stronger, carrying an undeniable weight of truth. "I may be scrubbing this car, but you've dirtied something much more important. What kind of example does this set? For yourselves? For the people watching you? For the child I'm carrying?" She pauses and places a hand gently on her belly. "This child inside me deserves a better world. A world where respect is a given, not a privilege." Her words hang heavy in the air and the crowd begins to stir. Bystanders murmur their support, some even clapping quietly. The officers glance at each other, visibly uncomfortable now. The woman, still scrubbing, adds one final statement, her tone unwavering. "I don't hate you, I pity you. Because at this moment, it's not me who's small, it's you. And that's something I wouldn't wish on anyone." The crowd erupts into applause. Her grace and dignity have not only silenced the officers, but also inspired everyone witnessing the scene. It's a moment of quiet triumph, a powerful reminder of the strength it takes to stand tall, even when forced to kneel. The officers stand stiffly by the car, their smirks fading as the woman's words begin to take hold. At first they exchange glances, their faces betraying discomfort they try to mask. One of them shifts awkwardly, adjusting his belt, while the other crosses his arms tighter across his chest, his jaw clenched. They don't speak, but their body language tells a story of uncertainty and unease. Behind them, the murmurs of the crowd grow louder. People start pulling out their phones, recording the scene and voicing their support. "She's right," someone calls out. "This isn't justice." Another adds, "How can you do this to a pregnant woman?" The officers begin to realize this is no longer a quiet display of power. It's becoming a spectacle, and the tide is clearly turning against them. As the woman continues speaking, her calm yet piercing words cut deeper. "You're supposed to uphold the law, not break it," she says, her voice unwavering. "This uniform doesn't give you the right to humiliate others. It gives you the responsibility to protect them." Her words are no longer just for the officers. They echo to the crowd, to the world watching through those recording phones. One officer looks down at the ground, his expression shifting from defiance to shame. The other starts to fidget, glancing nervously at the onlookers. It's clear her words are resonating, breaking through the walls they've built to shield themselves from accountability. And then something remarkable happens. One of the officers, the younger of the two, steps forward. His face is flushed, his movements hesitant, but there's a sincerity in his eyes that wasn't there before. He takes a deep breath, as if summoning the courage to speak. "Ma'am," he says, his voice low and trembling. "I'm sorry, this was wrong. We shouldn't have done this." His partner stiffens, clearly caught off guard but doesn't intervene. The younger officer continues, his words spilling out now, raw and genuine. "You're right. This isn't what the badge is about. I don't know what I was thinking. I'm sorry." He glances at the crowd, then back at her, his apology extending to everyone watching. The woman pauses, looking up at him, her gaze steady but kind. She nods, acknowledging his words without diminishing the weight of what has happened. The crowd erupts into applause, and the officer steps back, visibly shaken but changed. In that moment, it's clear her grace and dignity have accomplished something extraordinary. She didn't just stand up for herself, she held up a mirror, forcing them to confront their actions and perhaps start to change. In the face of humiliation, it would have been easy for her to respond with anger, to lash out at the injustice she was enduring. But instead, she chose grace, a calm and dignified response that not only protected her own integrity, but exposed the officers' actions for what they truly were. By refusing to meet disrespect with disrespect, she shifted the power dynamic entirely. Her words carried an undeniable truth, delivered not with rage but with quiet strength. It was this strength, her ability to remain composed and appeal to their shared humanity, that disarmed the officers. She didn't just demand change, she inspired it, forcing everyone present to confront their own role in either perpetuating or challenging injustice. The bystanders who had gathered to witness this moment were no longer passive observers. As her words resonated through the air, the crowd began to respond. Some clapped, others called out words of encouragement. "You're incredible. Keep speaking your truth." The support was palpable, a wave of solidarity that grew with every passing moment. People who had been hesitant to speak out now felt emboldened. It wasn't just her fight anymore, it was everyone's. Phones captured the scene, not just for social media, but as evidence of a turning point, a moment that would be remembered and shared far beyond the boundaries of that small town. Then came the most unexpected moment of all. One of the officers, visibly moved, stepped forward. The same man who had demanded she wash the car now stood before her, his head slightly bowed. His voice was shaky as he spoke. "Ma'am," he began, struggling to find the right words, "I want to say I'm sorry. What I did, was wrong." The crowd fell silent, hanging on his every word. He continued, addressing her directly. "I shouldn't have treated you this way. You've shown more dignity and strength today than I ever could. I need to reflect on my actions and be better." The woman looked up at him, her expression a mixture of grace and quiet triumph. She nodded, accepting his apology without diminishing its importance. The officer, clearly emotional, went a step further. "If there's anything I can do to make this right, please let me know. And from this day forward, I promise to carry this lesson with me." What made her response so impactful wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it. In choosing grace under pressure, she turned a moment of degradation into one of transformation. Her calm strength inspired self-reflection, not just in the officer who apologized, but in everyone who witnessed the scene. This wasn't just about one incident, it became a lesson in humanity, a reminder that change begins when we meet injustice with courage, dignity, and the belief that even those who do wrong can choose to be better. In a world that often values loud protests and defiance, this woman's response was a profound reminder of the true power of grace under pressure. She could have fought fire with fire, retaliated with anger, frustration, or even hatred, but she chose not to. Instead, she demonstrated that strength is not always measured by force or aggression. True power comes in choosing dignity over degradation, calm over chaos. Her response resonated on a deep emotional level with those around her, particularly with the officers. She didn't need to raise her voice to assert her humanity. Her very presence spoke volumes. Her refusal to engage in hostility not only preserved her own integrity, but also forced everyone, those who were complicit, those who were watching, and even the officers, to reflect on their actions. Humiliation by its nature is designed to break you. It's meant to strip you of your dignity, to make you feel small, insignificant, and powerless. But this woman did something remarkable. She turned that very humiliation into a powerful lesson about humanity. She chose not to let their degradation define her. Instead, she used the moment to teach them a lesson in empathy, respect, and justice. Her ability to maintain composure while under pressure didn't just challenge the officers, it challenged every bystander, every person who heard her words, to reflect on their own behavior. She showed them that no matter how degrading the circumstances, one can still stand tall and respond with humanity, dignity, and the belief that things can be made right. Her calmness in the face of injustice exemplifies the power of standing tall against it. While many people might believe that to fight injustice, you must meet aggression with aggression, she showed that the greatest strength lies in remaining true to yourself and upholding your dignity, no matter what. This was not just a victory for her, but for everyone watching who has ever faced unfair treatment. By standing firm, she demonstrated that one person, acting with integrity and compassion, can not only expose injustice but inspire change. Her response taught everyone that there's a better way to confront wrongdoings, one that leaves room for healing and growth instead of anger and retaliation. This woman's grace is a powerful lesson, not only for those who are wronged, but for all of us as individuals. In a world where we are constantly faced with conflicts, disagreements, and moments of injustice, we all have a choice in how we respond. It's easy to let emotions take control, to lash out or seek vengeance. But the woman's actions remind us that there's another way, a way that upholds our dignity and forces the world around us to reevaluate its behavior. Her composure sparked a ripple effect that extended far beyond that moment. It showed that through patience, dignity, and humility, we can challenge the status quo and inspire those around us to be better. It's not about remaining silent in the face of wrongdoing, it's about responding in a way that forces reflection, accountability, and ultimately change. Her calm response was more than just a reaction to a specific incident, it was a statement. It was a reminder that true power lies not in reacting to hate with hate, but in responding to it with grace, strength, and a commitment to humanity. Her actions inspire us to be the change we wish to see in the world, showing us that even in the face of adversity, we can choose to stand tall, lead with dignity, and make a difference. In a world that often feels divided and unjust, her message is clear. Don't let injustice define you. Respond with dignity, and you'll inspire others to do the same. This incident serves as a glaring reminder of the deep-rooted racial bias that still exists in many aspects of society, particularly within law enforcement. The officer's treatment of this pregnant black woman, demanding she wash their car, reflects a pattern of dehumanization that too many people of color face on a daily basis. It's not just about one isolated incident. It's a symptom of a larger systemic issue. Racial bias is not always overt. It's often hidden in subtle actions like assuming someone is guilty based on their appearance or treating them with less respect simply because of their race. This story forces us to confront these biases head-on and reflect on how they shape the way people are treated, especially by those who are supposed to protect and serve. Law enforcement, in particular, has a responsibility to hold itself accountable and to ensure that their actions align with the values of justice, equality, and respect for all individuals. When bias goes unchecked, it not only undermines the trust between communities and the police, but also perpetuates harmful stereotypes and inequalities that affect marginalized groups. Accountability is crucial. We can't ignore these incidents or hope they'll just go away. For real change to happen, law enforcement agencies need to take a long, hard look at their practices and ensure that their officers are held accountable for their actions. This means ongoing training to recognize and challenge biases, as well as a clear system for reporting misconduct without fear of retaliation. The apology from the officer in this incident is a step in the right direction, but it's not enough. True accountability requires more than just words. It requires action. It involves making sure that when police officers make mistakes, they are held responsible. It means having systems in place that allow communities to voice their concerns and see real consequences when they are wronged. Furthermore, this story also underscores the need for broader conversations about the culture within law enforcement. A culture that values empathy, respect, and community connections can help to reduce the bias that many officers may unknowingly carry. Law enforcement needs to acknowledge its role in perpetuating injustice and actively work to rebuild trust with the communities they serve. So, what can we do to help bring about change? It starts with awareness. We need to acknowledge that racial bias is real and that systemic issues exist. By recognizing the problem, we can begin to work towards a solution. But acknowledging the issue isn't enough. We need to take action. Share this story. Let people know that there are instances where law enforcement falls short of their duty to serve and protect. It's important to amplify voices like the woman in this story who challenged the status quo and remind us all of our shared humanity. Speak up when you see injustice. Whether it's in your community or on the news, don't stay silent. The more people who refuse to accept discrimination, the stronger the movement for change will be. Push for better training for law enforcement. Advocate for systems of accountability that work. Support policies that promote equality and challenge discriminatory practices. Together, we can build a world where respect is the norm. A world where people are treated with dignity, regardless of their race, gender, or background. It's going to take all of us standing together to create that change. So share this story, speak up against injustice, and let's build a future where every person is treated as they deserve to be, with respect and fairness. This moment, as painful as it was, can be a turning point. Let's use it as a catalyst for meaningful conversations about race, justice, and accountability. Together, we can work toward a better tomorrow for everyone.